Bagnacavallo supposedly takes its name, bathe horse, from a local spring where Roman Emperor Tiberius is said to have stopped to water his sick mount. Today it's one of the biggest tourist destinations in the Ravenna province. It's not difficult to see why. Its beautifully preserved centre still follows its original medieval layout of winding alleys and arcaded streets, and it has an excellent complement of palazzos and religious buildings. On Piazza della Libertà is the neoclassical town hall, built in 1791 to a design by Cosimo Morelli. Next door is the impressive Goldoni Theatre. Opened in 1845, it has a sumptuous interior decorated with stuccos and frescoes. Its tempera stage backdrop is by the Bolognese artist Antonio Muzzi. On the west side of the piazza is Palazzo Vecchio, originally from the 12th and 13th centuries, but restored on several occasions since, and the town tower from the mid-13th century. Its clock was added in the early 16th century. The tower was once used as a jail, and the legendary bandit known as the Ferryman was imprisoned here in 1849. Adjacent to the piazza in Via Trento Trieste is the 17th century Church of the Suffragio and the old arcade, a semi-subterranean public passageway. Some buildings of note on Via Mazzini are the Palazzo delle Opere Pie, built in 1728 for the Bishop of Faenza, the Collegiate Church of San Michele Arcangelo, rebuilt in the 17th century on foundations dating back to the 12th century, Inside the church is a magnificent altarpiece by Bartolomeo Ramenghi. Palazzo Longanesi Catani, an 18th century building with a neat arcaded facade, and the Carmine, a church which combines Baroque and neoclassical features. Vicolo degli Amori is an atmospheric alleyway beside the former Carmelite monastery. Palazzo Abbondanza was completed in 1675 and contained the town's first public theatre. And Palazzo Folicaldi dates from the 18th century, with an upper story from the 19th century. At the end of Via Mazzini is the town gate, Porta Superiore, rebuilt in the 18th century on the remains of the original gate tower. On Via Garibaldi is the 18th century Palazzo Gradenigo, which takes its name from the noble Venetian family that built it, and has an impressive arcade on the Via Farini side, the 13th century Torraccia, and the 17th century church and convent of San Giovanni, where Lord Byron's daughter Allegra died while still a small child in 1882. At the end of Via Garibaldi is another gate, Porta Pieve. Also worth seeing in the centre of Bagnacavallo is the 17th century Palazzo Capra in Via Mattiotti, one of the town's finest. The Castellaccio in Via Baracca, a fortified building dating from the 15th century, in Via Diaz, the elegant 18th century Palazzo Graziani has an enormous botanical garden, the largest in the centre of Bagnacavallo and the last surviving garden of its kind in the region. This garden, the Giardino dei Semplici, is divided into 4 sections: Umbraculum, Pomarium, Hortus Holorum and Hortus Sanitatis. By far the most impressive and original building in Bagnacavallo, however, is Piazza Nuova, entered by Via Battisti and Largo Kennedy. The piazza, a perfect oval lined internally by arcades, dates from 1758 and was originally a market for meat, fish and olive oil. Recently restored, it now houses a restaurant and craft workshops. Externally, it has an exposed brick facade, while the shops which house the traders looked onto the courtyard through the round arches of the arcade. Between Via de Amicis and Via Cadorna stand the church and monastery of San Francesco, originally dating from the 13th century, altered on several occasions since, and partially rebuilt in the late 18th century. The large monastery with its charming cloister has recently been restored, and part of it is now a youth hostel. Some rooms in the northwest wing of the monastery are open to the public, including the vast and impressive Oriani Hall. Originally the refectory, it's lined by exceptionally well-crafted wooden seating. In Via Vittoria Veneto, the former convent of the Capuchin sisters is now home to the town's cultural centre, which includes the historic Taroni Library, an art gallery with an impressive collection of modern art, and the excellent National Museum of Prints, with engravings by Dürer, Piranesi and Longhi. Not far from the centre of town is the beautiful parish church of San Pietro in Silvis, probably the most famous monument in Bagnacavallo. One of the best preserved of its kind in all Romagna, the parish church dates from the early 7th century. Inside, its nave is flanked by aisles, and together with some exceptional marble work, it also contains some important 14th century frescoes from the Rimini school. Not far from the centre of Bagnacavallo is Podere Pantaleone, a wonderfully peaceful environmental rehabilitation zone which is open at weekends from April to September. The zone covers an area of 6 hectares and is of considerable value as a testament to the largely vanished natural ecology of Romagna. In nearby Villanova di Bagnacavallo, the Museum of Marshland Culture preserves the region's reedwork heritage. The museum has over 2,000 exhibits testifying to the symbiosis of humanity and environment, with some extremely interesting examples of wickerwork made using techniques dating from the Middle Ages through to the 18th century.